jungle hills of northern Thailand, a man named Steve Areen built himself a house of small orange domes for about $9,000, and the photos went viral around the world. But the American who owned that land, a quiet man named Hajar Gibran, looked at those domes and asked a bigger question. Could you build one for $2,000? Could a 70-year-old woman build one with her own hands? And could it hold 70 degrees inside all year with no furnace and no air conditioner? The answer to all three turned out to be yes. And today, that answer is putting roofs over homeless veterans across America. Before we get to the domes and the soap bubbles, and yes, I really do mean soap bubbles, we need to talk about why any of this matters in the first place. Something has changed in America, and if you're over 55, you've probably felt it. The fastest growing group of people falling into homelessness in this country is not teenagers, and it's not young men. It's people over 50. Researchers who study homelessness expect the number of homeless seniors to nearly triple by the year 2030. Walk through any encampment in Phoenix or Sacramento today, and you'll see gray hair, you'll see walkers, you'll see women in their 60s who worked their whole lives, raised families, paid taxes, and are now sleeping in a Chevy Malibu behind a Walmart. The math explains it in about 10 seconds. The average Social Security retirement check is around $1,900 a month. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in America is now over $1,500. That leaves $400 for food, medicine, gas, insurance, and everything else. One bad month, one hospital bill, one rent increase, and the whole thing collapses. And among the people it collapses on are roughly 35,000 American veterans who will sleep outside tonight in the country they swore an oath to protect. Picture how it happens, because it rarely happens the way people think. Imagine a woman in her early 60s, let's call her Linda. She cleaned hospital rooms for 30 years. Her husband passed, and his pension went with him. Her landlord sells the building, the new owner raises the rent by $400, and every apartment she calls wants first month, last month, and a deposit she doesn't have. She's not addicted to anything. She's not mentally ill. She's just 63 with $1,100 in savings and nowhere to put a bed. Social workers say they now meet people like Linda every single week, people experiencing homelessness for the first time in their lives after age 55. The system was never built to catch them, and the waiting list for senior housing in many American cities is measured in years, not months. So when word started spreading about a house that cost $2,000 in materials, a house that shrugs off fire, termites, mold, and hurricanes, and holds a comfortable temperature all year practically for free, people paid attention. Churches paid attention. Veterans groups paid attention. And to understand where this house came from, we have to go back to that farm in Thailand. Hajar Gibran is the great-nephew of Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese poet who wrote The Prophet, one of the best-selling books of the 20th century. Hajar spent most of his working life in America, building businesses, raising a family, and carrying more than his share of grief. Later in life, he bought a mango farm in Thailand, looking for something simpler. In 2011, a traveling photographer named Steve Areen showed up, and Hajar made him an offer. Pick a spot on the farm and build yourself a home. Steve built a cluster of round domes with a curved staircase, a pond, and a rooftop hammock, all for about $9,000. When the pictures hit the internet, millions of people shared them, and thousands wrote in asking the same question. How do I build one? That question changed Hajar's life, because $9,000 was cheap, but it still wasn't cheap enough for the people who needed it most. The Thailand domes were built from bricks and mortar, which meant heavy materials and strong backs. Hajar wanted something a retired school teacher could lift, something a 65-year-old widow could cut with the tools in her kitchen drawer. So he went looking, and he found his answer in a material that big industry had known about for a century, but ordinary people had never been able to make at home: foamed concrete. What he and his team at a company called Dome Gaia did was figure out how to make it in a backyard with a cheap little foam generator they nicknamed the Little Dragon. They called the material aircrete. Aircrete sounds like science fiction, but the recipe is almost embarrassing. You take water, ordinary Portland cement from the hardware store, and a foaming agent, which for many builders is simply a high, foaming dish soap. The little dragon whips the soap and water into a dense white foam about the texture of shaving cream. You fold that foam into the wet cement, and the mixture fills with millions of tiny air bubbles. Pour it into simple wooden forms, let it cure overnight, and in the morning you have building blocks that look like concrete but behave like something else entirely. A block of aircrete floats in water. You can carry one under each arm. You can cut it with a cheap handsaw, drill it with a regular drill, carve a channel for electrical wire with a kitchen knife. And those millions of trapped air bubbles do something magical. They turn every wall into insulation. The material itself costs roughly $1 or $2 per square foot, which is where that number in the title comes from. A compact one-room dome, around 20 feet across, big enough for a bed, a kitchenette, a wood stove, and a small bathroom, works out to roughly $2,000 in materials. Not $200,000, $2,000. About the price of a used riding lawnmower. And the building process itself looks nothing like a construction site. There's no crane, no framing crew, no lumber delivery. Builders pour a simple round slab, then lay the featherlight blocks in a rising spiral, each course leaning slightly inward, so the wall gradually curves over your head and closes itself into a roof. The wall and the roof are the same thing, one continuous shell, which is exactly why there's nothing for a hurricane to peel off. Windows and doorways get cut out with a handsaw wherever you want them, and more than one builder has changed their mind halfway through and simply sawed a new window on the sunny side. The outside gets a thin coat of fiber-reinforced plaster to seal it from rain. The inside gets a smooth finish you can paint any color you like, and the whole shape ends up looking less like a bunker and more like a cottage from a storybook. Total build time for a small dome, with a few helpers, runs about 2 weeks. But a cheap house that can't hold its temperature is just a cheap shed. And this next part is where the domes either prove themselves or fall apart. 70 degrees all year sounds like salesmanship. So let's look at why round concrete buildings actually do this. A dome is the most efficient shape in nature, which is why you see it in eggshells, igloos, and turtle shells. It encloses the most living space with the least amount of wall, and less wall means less surface for summer heat to push through and winter cold to creep in. There are no corners, and corners are where ordinary houses leak. Wind doesn't slam into a dome, it slides around it, and all that cement acts as thermal mass, a heat battery. On a July afternoon in Texas, the walls slowly absorb the day's heat and release it during the cool night. In January, one small wood stove or space heater warms the mass, and the walls give that warmth back for hours. Owners describe it like living inside a thermos. The town of Italy, Texas, is home to the Monolithic Dome Institute, which has been building larger concrete domes for decades, including schools and gymnasiums across Tornado Alley. Some of those domes are rated to survive winds of 250 miles per hour, and towns use them as storm shelters. When a tornado flattened whole neighborhoods in Oklahoma, dome owners came home to find their houses standing in fields of splinters. Fire can't burn concrete. Termites can't eat it. Mold has nothing to feed on. For a retiree on a fixed income, insurance costs drop, utility bills shrink to pocket change, and the house will outlive its owner's grandchildren. Think about what that does to a monthly budget. The average American household now spends somewhere around $250 a month on electricity and heating fuel, and for seniors in older, drafty houses, it's often far more. Dome owners routinely report keeping a small space comfortable on $20 to $40 a month, and some off-grid builders run everything they need from a modest solar setup on the south face of the shell. In the desert outside Tucson, aircrete owners talk about stepping inside at noon in August and feeling the temperature drop the moment the door closes. In snow country, owners describe lighting one small stove in the evening and waking to warm walls at dawn. That's the 70-degree promise in the title. It's not that the thermostat reads exactly 70 every hour of the year. It's that the house naturally wants to sit in that comfortable middle zone, and it costs almost nothing to nudge it the rest of the way. Before I show you the Americans already building these for homeless veterans, let me pause for 30 seconds, because this next part is for anyone watching who is struggling right now, or who loves someone who is. I put together a guide called The Veteran's Blueprint. It covers the things I genuinely cannot walk through on YouTube, the specific counties, the specific programs, specific legal shortcuts, because spelling them out here, step by step, would put this channel at risk of being taken down. It's written for veterans, for anyone a paycheck away from losing their home, and for the people who want to help them. The link is in the description below, or just scan the QR code on your screen. It might be the most important thing you read this year. Now, back to Texas. On 51 acres outside Austin sits a place called Community First Village, started by a man named Alan Graham and his ministry, Mobile Loaves and Fishes. Alan spent years driving a food truck to the corners where homeless Austinites slept, learning their names, hearing their stories. What he learned changed his whole approach. Housing alone doesn't fix homelessness, he says, because homelessness is at its root a catastrophic loss of family. So he built a neighborhood. Today, hundreds of formerly homeless men and women, many of them seniors, live there in tiny homes with front porches, tending gardens, raising chickens, running a blacksmith forge, and an art studio. In 2020, a company called Icon printed several new houses there with a giant three-dimensional concrete printer, proving that unconventional concrete homes can pass inspection and shelter the people society gave up on. 1,500 miles north in Kansas City, Missouri, two combat veterans got tired of watching their brothers and sisters die on the street, so they founded the Veterans Community Project. They built a village of 49 tiny homes, each around 240 square feet, arranged so every front door faces the community center, the way tents face inward at a forward operating base. Every home comes furnished, down to sheets on the bed and food in the pantry, and every resident gets counseling, job help, and time to heal. It worked so well that other cities came asking, and the model is now spreading across the country. And then there are the dome builders themselves. Dome Gaia runs hands-on workshops all over the world, where 20 or 30 strangers pay tuition to spend 10 days building an aircrete dome with their own hands. Retired nurses, widowed grandmothers, young couples priced out of everything. They mix the foam, stack the featherlight blocks in rising spiral courses, and plaster the curves smooth. At the end of 10 days, there is a house standing that didn't exist before. The students carry the skill home in their hands, and in many cases, the finished dome goes to someone who desperately needs it. Church groups in Florida and Texas have started copying the model, hosting builds where the congregation supplies the labor and the dome goes to a homeless neighbor or a veteran. One dome at a time, the way barns used to go up 100 years ago. If you've ever watched an Amish barn raising, you already understand why this works. The material is cheap, but the labor is love, and when a community supplies the labor, the price of a home collapses to the price of cement and dish soap. People who attend these builds describe something they didn't expect. Grandmothers running the foam gun, a retired Marine and a college kid plastering the same wall, somebody's granddaughter carving a little sun above the doorway. By the last day, nobody wants to leave because the thing they built together belongs, in a small way, to all of them. And for the person who receives the dome, that matters as much as the roof. They aren't moving into charity. They're moving into a house their neighbors made with their own hands, and everyone in town knows it. Which brings us to the villain of this story. And it isn't the weather, and it isn't the cost. It's paperwork. In most American cities, that $2,000 dome is illegal. Not because it's unsafe, because it's small, and because it's different. Thousands of zoning codes across the country set minimum square footage for a legal dwelling, sometimes 1,000 square feet or more, rules written decades ago to protect property values, not people. Permit fees, impact fees, and engineering stamps can cost more than the entire dome. A structure that laughs at tornadoes can fail an inspection because the inspector's checklist has no box for a curved wall. There are cities in this country that have bulldozed tiny home villages built by charities for the homeless, while spending, by their own accounting, tens of thousands of dollars per person per year to manage those same people in shelters, emergency rooms, and jail cells. Read that math again. The dome costs $2,000 once. The street costs more than that every single month. And the rules produce situations you almost couldn't invent. In plenty of jurisdictions, it is perfectly legal to live in a 30-year-old camper with a leaking roof because it has wheels, but illegal to live in a brand new fireproof concrete dome because it doesn't. A garden shed the same size as the dome needs no permit at all, as long as nobody sleeps in it. Some retirees have quietly discovered that gap, building a fully finished dome as a legal workshop or studio, then furnishing it in ways the county never asks about. I'm not telling you to do that, and every county is different, but I am telling you the line between homeless and housed in this country is often nothing more than a definition on a zoning map. The good news is the wall is cracking. Austin changed its rules and got Community First Village. Kansas City worked with the Veterans Community Project instead of against it. Los Angeles now builds villages of small prefab cabins for people coming off the sidewalk. And a growing number of states have legalized accessory dwelling units, small backyard homes, which is quietly one of the biggest doors ever opened for this kind of building. A dome in a daughter's backyard is how more than one grandmother has escaped a rent she could no longer pay. But the people moving fastest aren't waiting for cities at all. They're going where the rules barely exist. Large stretches of rural America in states like Missouri, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada have counties with minimal building codes or none at all for private homes on private land. In some of those counties, an acre of buildable land still sells for the price of a decent television. Buy the acre, haul in water totes and a solar kit, and that $2,000 dome becomes a fully legal, fully paid-for home with no landlord, no mortgage, and a utility bill you could cover collecting aluminum cans. People are doing this right now. Veterans are doing it in small groups, putting 3 or 4 domes on one shared parcel, watching each other's backs the way they were trained to. The catch is that you have to know which counties, what questions to ask before you buy, and which mistakes will get a dream bulldozed. One wrong parcel, one missed detail on a deed or a septic rule, and you can lose everything you put in. Khalil Gibran, the poet whose blood runs in the man who started all this, wrote that your house is your larger body, not your investment, not your net worth, your body, a place that holds you. Somewhere in America tonight, a veteran who slept under an overpass last winter is falling asleep inside a little round house that a group of strangers built with cement and dish soap, and the walls around him are holding 70 degrees while the wind howls outside. That house cost less than most people's vacation. The only expensive part, it turns out, was permission. So now you know what aircrete is, why a dome holds its temperature like a thermos, who's already building them for homeless veterans and seniors, and where in America you can still legally build one for the price of a used lawnmower. If you or someone you love is closer to the edge than you'd like to admit, the Veterans Blueprint walks through the parts I had to leave out of this video. The county lists, the programs, and the step-by-step details that don't survive on YouTube. Link in the description or scan the QR code on your screen. And if this story gave you a little hope today, subscribe, because next time I'm showing you the underground homes Americans are building for $5,000 that never drop below 55 degrees, even buried under snow. I'll see you there.